If you haven't caught the news recently, man, Florida is having some major issues with squatters. And before they signed a bill into law, squatters there were considered tenants in the eyes of the law. Oh my goodness, are you kidding me? And now they're going to face criminal charges for what used to be honestly within their rights. So what about Washington? Well, when is a squatter considered a tenant, and are they subject to tenants' rights? Good questions. Well, hi, my name is Cassandra Marks, also known as Realtor Cass, and I am your guide to everything Southwest Washington, Clark County, Vancouver, and even Portland. And we are going to dig into this very question because I bet you're wondering now too, what to do about squatters if you're thinking about making a move to my area here in Southwest Washington. So if you have more questions after the video, please either send me an email, a text, or a DM me on the socials at Realtor Cass, and we can set up a call to talk over everything, all the questions you have before you decide to make that move here to the Pacific Northwest. So in the state of Washington, squatters can legally make a claim of ownership to lands or real estate through something called adverse possession. And they can do this in all 50 states. They all have adverse possession laws. So adverse possession is a legal doctrine that allows someone who possesses another person's property for a certain amount of time, usually 7 to 10 years, to legally claim ownership of it. All right, so prime example, I heard this in one of my real estate classes, was that, all right, you and your neighbors, you got this strip of lawn in between your two driveways. You mow half, your neighbor, Billy Bob mows half, call it good. Well, one day you decided that you are going to, maybe put a fence up, sell the house, that kind of thing. So you get a survey done of your lot. Come to find out that your neighbor, Billy Bob, actually doesn't own any of the grass, but he has been mowing it for the past 10 years and you have not said anything to him. So he would have a claim to adverse possession through that middle section of how far he was mowing if he chose to. So just one little sample there. So what is a squatter now? A squatter is a person that starts living in someone else's property or on someone else's property without the owner's consent. Besides not having any legal rights to owning the property, a squatter, and this is key, this is very much the key point, is also they do not pay rent to live on the property. Typically, squatters will occupy properties that are, either unoccupied or abandoned or have been foreclosed upon, no one's around. So what is the difference between squatting and trespassing? It's definitely easy to get them two confused, between squatting and trespassing, but it's important to note that they are not legally actually the same thing. So unlike trespassing, squatting is just a civil matter and not a criminal offense. Squatters will only become a criminal offense once the property owner has discovered their presence and made it known that they need to leave. That's when they become trespassers. So I know you're starting to think about tenants, I bet, that overstay their welcome. Well, those are called holdover tenants. And at what point do they become a trespasser? Holdover tenants are renters who refuse to leave once the term of their lease agreement has expired. They are also known as tenants at sufferance. If the landlord allows them to stay, say with a month-to-month lease, like a lot of people do, then they will be responsible for continuing to uphold the terms of their existing or previous lease agreement. And they will be living at the will of the landlord. So they're not considered holdover tenants. But if the landlord doesn't allow them to stay after their lease term expires, but they refuse to leave, the landlord can file an unlawful detainer lawsuit against them. And at that point, the holdover tenants will then be considered a criminal trespasser. Once they become a trespasser, they will no longer be able to make any sort of adverse possession claim to the property. So I bet you are wondering, do squatters need to pay property taxes? And well, yes, that is a great question. And yes, squatters must pay the property taxes for at least 7 uninterrupted years while occupying the space. If they cannot prove that they have done so, they cannot make a legal declaration of ownership of the property. Now, what conditions must squatters meet to lay claim to said property? Well, in Washington, a squatter can establish ownership of a property after occupying it for 7 consecutive years. However, this is only one of the conditions they must meet to make a legal claim to the property. They actually must meet the following 3 requirements as well. So number 1, squatters must be able to make what is referred to as a hostile claim to the property. And in a legal sense, hostile takes one of these 2 different meanings. Either, they have a simple occupation, and basically the term of hostile is defined to mean there is mere occupation of the land.
Sir, this means war. I am vanquished.
And the trespasser is not obligated to know who the actual property owner is. Most states will follow this definition of hostile, just so you're aware. Number 2 is the awareness of the trespassing. Unlike the first definition, this definition requires that the trespasser has an awareness of their criminal actions. They must know that they are committing a criminal offense by living on the property. Number 2, they must have open and notorious possession of the property. And number 1, under this requirement, the squatters must have publicly occupied the property. They cannot have hidden the fact that they were living on the property at all. So you can't pull the shades. They can't hide in and out, go in and out during the night. They must actually have possession of the property too. So a squatter cannot make a claim of adverse possession if they haven't actually been possessing of the property. So they must occupy it. And regardless of whether it is a legal occupation at the time or not, they have to prove that they have done this by doing things like beautifying the property, maintaining the property, or improving the property. So now I'm going to tell you a little story that I saw on TikTok. So it's about this gal. She's down in, I believe it was Laguna Beach area in California. And I kind of was following her story. So she found this lot of land and she used to walk past it. She's like, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. Who owns this? And when she was growing up, she never, ever, ever saw anybody come or go. And she's like, oh my gosh, I absolutely need, love, and want this property. I would love to buy it from them. And so she set out to find the owners. She went to title, got the names, ended up hiring a private investigator, could not find anyone who owned it or anybody, extended family, that owned it. And it was just sitting vacant. So she decided to try and use adverse possession to claim the property. So what did she do? She put a fence around the property. She mowed the property. She, I believe, put a sign up with her name and her phone number on it, stating, that she was taking care of it if anybody had questions. She also paid all of the back property taxes, and she also filed a lien against the property so that if someone did come looking for it, they saw that she paid the taxes and then they would have to give her the money back to basically get the property back. Well, 7 years goes by, not a single person steps forward and raises their hand. So then at that time, she goes and files adverse possession on this property. She tried everything to find the owners and she did not find them. So she filed adverse possession. And let me tell you, this property was right on the edge of the water overlooking the ocean. Turns out that the owners of that property died almost 100 years ago. And all of their next of kin didn't realize either that they owned the land or that they, had availability to it, and then everyone had passed away. She was unable to find anyone in the lineage of that family to take it. And she did her due diligence. So she filed adverse possession. She got this, she built a house and now owns a home on the ocean because of adverse possession. I think that's kind of a cool story. Obviously, it's not going to happen all the time. But I also was just recently talking to a realtor friend of mine, and she is up in the Tacoma area and talking about this plot of land that's behind someone she knows land, and they can't find the owner because the partner to the owner, the owner died, their family died, they have no next of kin to give this property to. And because the partner and the owner were not married in the state of Washington, it's a community property state, so they have no right to that property. So there's literally no one. So this realtor friend of mine, we were talking about adverse possession, and that's what they're going to do. They're going to put a fence around the property and they're going to pay the back taxes, file the lien, and maintain it for 7 years and try to take over. kind of an interesting thought. So now we've talked about that, but how do you evict a squatter in Washington? And unlike many other states, property owners in Washington can remove squatters simply by involving the police. To do this, they just need to provide the police with a little declaration form. And this is a legal document that states that, a couple things. One, whoever is filing the declaration form is the property owner or their representative. Two, the person staying at the property has absolutely no legal authority to do so. And number three, the property was not abandoned when the squatter started living on it. The person filling out the form must understand that it is illegal to provide false information. I'm just going to throw that out there. And then they will allow the alleged squatter to present their case on their rights to the property. And if the squatter fails to basically present a convincing case, the police will just remove them from the property, and they may actually end up facing charges for criminal trespassing as well, which I kind of agree with. One thing to note, though, is that the squatter must have exclusive possession of the land. And what does that mean? Well, a squatter will not be able to make a successful adverse possession claim if they cannot prove that they have had exclusive possession of that property. So what this means is that they cannot have shared the property with, say, someone like other squatters, tenants, or even the property owner. Well, that was definitely not as big of a hot mess as it has been in Florida. But remember, a squatter is only someone who has not paid rent. So watch out who you sign rental agreements with. I always say it's best to utilize a property manager who is licensed and a professional and has experience in these situations so that they can keep you out of some hot water. But I will drop some resources down in the description below. And in the meantime, if you are looking to make an investment here in the Vancouver area, I highly recommend checking out this video right here on the new Airbnb rules that might be coming down the pipe after their 24-month trial period here in Vancouver. It might make you want to change your investment strategy just a tiny bit. And as an investor myself, I can help you with that. Again, my name is Cassandra Marks, also known as Realtor Cass. I'm a farmer with a wee little real estate problem. I hope you found this video informational, and thank you so much for spending time with me today. Bye.